All right, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Grant Pulse, the Commodity Distribution Administrator, along with Gene Trimbo, who you're all likely familiar with. We're delighted to have you join us this afternoon as we learn how to utilize the whole bird. We appreciate your patience with us and value your input and feedback. If you could advance to the next slide. Before we go too far, we want to give a big shout out and acknowledge the poultry processors who have graciously partnered with us, providing what we think will help our schools make wise choices with their poultry pounds. We'll be sending participants all of the compiled information. While many of these schools already have some of this information, we wanted to get it out to everyone that had access, get it out to everyone. But unfortunately, the zip file was inaccessible. So we're going to get that out to everybody after the meeting. We're going to figure out a way to distribute that information. Not only will the product information be included on there, but the commodity calculators and K-12 brochures for those who had them available will be with that information as well. Go to the next slide, please. And a bit of housekeeping, if you were on early, we don't allow the use of generative AI tools. So if you have that capability that pops up with your with whatever device you're listening in on, please go ahead and shut that off at this time. We would really appreciate that. Next slide, please. And due to limited time, we're not going to host a Q&A session, but we do have that capability available. Go ahead and leave your name and email along with your question in the Q&A box, and we will reach out as on a case-by-case basis there. And next slide, please. And our objective is to help you all, the SFAs, manage your entitlement funds and give access to high quality food as well as meet the nutrition standards. And we can go to the next slide. And so many of you went to the 2025 TSNA annual conference in Gatlinburg. If you didn't, you missed a good session. That's where Gene met Katie and Jill when she told them what the Tennessee Department of Agriculture was attempting to put together. They did not hesitate to jump out and help with us. We soon learned just how much Katie and Jill know about the poultry industry. Dr. Katie Wilson has a passion for child nutrition and has dedicated her career to improving access to healthy food for all children and their families. She has spent 23 years as a school nutrition director, 5 years as the executive director for the Institute of Child Nutrition, 2 years as the deputy undersecretary of Food, Nutrition, and Consumer Services at the USDA. She is presently the executive director of the Urban School Food Alliance. And Jill is, she leads procurement and business innovation initiatives for the Urban School Food Alliance. Their objective is to change school food procurement, develop enhanced procurement tools, stabilize supply and the cost of food in schools. Jill is the former school food service director and a respected leader in school food procurement. She was a co-founder and cooperative administrator for a large cooperative in Colorado for 16 years. She is the past president of Colorado ASBO, the Colorado School of Nutrition Association, and served as secretary-treasurer on the School Nutrition Association Board of Directors. And with that, Katie, you can kick it off.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Grant and Gene, and thanks to the Tennessee Department of Agriculture and the work that the Department of Education as well, for the work that you're trying to do to really help change the school marketplace in school procurement. Our goal is really to make sure that we are doing this the best way possible. We're the best business partners possible, and also for this presentation to make sure that we're using our entitlement dollars in the most efficient way possible for all the stakeholders that are involved in this process. So I also want to just give a shout out to turkey processors and chicken processors that gave their input and educating us on a lot of these issues. We've heard about this white meat, dark meat thing for quite some time. And so we reached out to a number of you in the processing world and said, okay, what's the issue and what can we do to help educate people to do this better? And I think what really came up is very interesting is that it's the whole bird. It's one turkey or one chicken. You can't decide to tell a chicken to only grow white meat or a turkey to only grow white meat. And so what do we do with the whole bird and what's out there to make sure that we're using our entitlement dollars to the best of our ability? So I'm going to do this presentation, but I've asked Jill, who has a lot of experience in the procurement area and in school nutrition, to chime in as she sees fit. So let's start with entitlement dollars. Many of you know a lot of this already, but I can't help but start right here. Too many times people say to me, well, it's just free food. It's not free food. It is part of your budget. It's critical that you use every penny to your advantage. I know recently someone at ANC, I was just at the national conference, and we were having a discussion about entitlement dollars, and they said, well, 2 or 3 pennies more isn't going to make a difference. When I was a school nutrition director, we were down to the half penny. We knew how much it cost to put a rack through a dish machine. And when it came to our entitlement dollars, I wanted to use every single penny I had in entitlement dollars. I also wanted to make sure that I used them at the beginning of the school year so that I didn't get involved in a sweep. Because at a certain point in time, every state has said, if you have not used your entitlement dollars, they will do a sweep. In other words, they'll take what's ever out there, and then they'll redistribute it to people that are using their entitlement dollars. So I did not want to lose my entitlements during a sweep. I wanted to take the benefit of getting some bonus because they were pulled back in a sweep. And so I think if people start thinking about this as money, this is money in your budget that we are lucky enough to have at as the USDA Foods Program. Many times, too, people are always worried about the Buy American. You can be rest assured that when you use entitlement dollars to buy through the USDA Foods Program, you are getting 100% American. You don't have to worry about the Buy American provision if you're using your entitlement dollars for the USDA Foods Program. They are processed here in America. It's grown here in America. So you know that that's another assurance that you have. And what we found out through a poultry project that we did the last couple of years is that the whole bird can help. I really truly believe that we have been sort of brainwashed through the fast food industry that only white meat is acceptable, that only whole breast meat is acceptable. And that's because that's what we've seen on TV. That's what they've kind of gotten things rolling to get people encouraged that that's what they're selling in the fast food industry. But we've come to find out that there are a lot of really good products out there that are both dark meat only and a blend. I was really impressed with what's out there in a blend that I had no knowledge of before we really started to explore this. So that whole bird, using the whole bird, can really help stretch those entitlement dollars, and it can help you put some other products into your menu process. So let's talk a little bit about that. The value of that USDA food. You all know that it's based on the number of lunches you served last year. So I always concentrated on increasing my reimbursable meals to increase that value. So a really good example is we had an a la carte room, or a hut, they used to call it, in one of my school districts that I worked in. And okay, that was great. Kids that had money could go in the a la carte hut because you couldn't buy a la carte if you owed us money. But what we did is we bundled meals. If you bought a sandwich or a main entree item in a la carte, you got the fruit, vegetable, and milk for free. And it was a bundle. They all fell for it. And any kid could use their 4-digit number, and it didn't matter whether you were free, reduced, or full priced. Because I wanted to increase the number of reimbursable meals I had so that the following year my USDA entitlements were higher. And I believe it was 30 cents for the 24-25 school year. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. So I want you to take a minute now that I've talked to you a minute about this and hopefully clicked something in your brain. Based on your 24-25 lunch counts that you've just closed the books on, do the math. What's your entitlement for next year? How much are you going to be able to spend in the USDA Foods program to lower your budget? In most cases, it's 15 to 20% of a school nutrition budget. And if we can make the most of those dollars and have a variety of products that are tasty and the kids love, then that's what the goal of this is, trying to use that whole bird. So do the math. What's your entitlement for next year? And how are you going to make sure you use every penny of that before it's time for a sweep? So it's all in one bird. We really had some really funny laughter about all this. Turkey or chicken, it's all one bird. This came to me from the turkey industry, and it's pretty much the same as a chicken. In most cases, it's not quite as large. Turkey takes a little longer to grow than a chicken, but it has white meat and dark meat in it. But we have created a dilemma for ourselves in school nutrition, where we have really sort of given an imbalance to the system. So we go and we order all this white meat, but part of your entitlement dollars is dark meat. So what's happening to those dollars? Where is that dark meat going? And how might you best use it? So hopefully we can find some solutions to use it all, the whole bird. And we have a lot of, like Jean said, there are a number of processors, manufacturers on this call. And I appreciate the time that they've given to be on this call, to have these conversations with us, and to try to think of solutions that we can use the whole bird. So they're part of the solution. You don't have to be afraid to call a manufacturer or a processor and ask questions. They're there for that particular reason. You also have a whole team of brokers out there that some of them know a lot about this, and they're also there to help you answer questions about this. Because the USDA Foods program, and I never heard this before, someone said it to me recently, this foods program is the whole bird program. It's a whole bird program. They don't say to the state of Tennessee, hey, you get so many pounds of just white meat. That's it. Well, don't worry about the dark meat. We'll take care of that somewhere else. No, they call the state of Tennessee and they say, hey, look, you have a lot of dark meat you need to pull down. So what are you going to do about it? And so it is based on the whole bird, which I never even thought about as I was a school nutrition director, that we have to find a way to do that. And I think there's a lot of solutions already out there. So I went and I started looking at products of interest. This is only a very short list off of some websites, okay? There is a lot out there. And it looks like my little titles didn't show up in my slide. That shows you how technically savvy I am. I believe that this is white meat all the way down this column. And I believe that this is probably, let me see, I think I have it here. I don't know why my little signs didn't show up. These are dark products down the center column. This is all dark meat. Now, if I'm doing diced turkey ham and I'm just, doing ham in a roll, or maybe I'm making a wrap, the diced turkey ham, if it's dark meat, I think it would work fine. Breakfast sausage, links and patties. Dark meat probably works pretty good. Taco meat, you're putting a sauce over it. That could work very well. Same with meatballs. And that last one, garlic basil chicken patty with mozzarella. I'm ready to taste that one. But those are just dark products. So think of those and think what they might look like that you probably don't even know that there's dark meat in it. Dark meat adds flavor because it has a little bit more of the fat and the flavoring is there. It also adds moisture. So you have a lot of moisture in these products as well. And this final column over here is what we have, the mixed products, white and dark. And again, I took this off a number of different websites. But think of all these things that are mixed, even a chicken nugget, a natural shaped patty, a chicken tender, turkey taco meat, white and dark turkey roast, turkey meatballs, turkey crumbles. We're probably going to put a sauce on that anyway. And so I would really recommend that people go and search out what are those blended products that are out there and give them a try and see what you think and see what your team thinks. But so these are just the lists of products that I thought were pretty interesting that we use in school meals. And it shows you that across the board, you could get some of the same kinds of things if we just take a look at what might be available in dark meat and the blends. Oh, there it is. See? Wow, I flew them in. I didn't even know that I was flying in. So this is something else I learned from a processor, that there are processor yields. Different processors can offer different percents of white and dark yields. Those return ratios can vary from 60% white, 40% dark, to 78 white, 32% white. If a district prefers more white meat, inquire about processor yields. I think this is a very good example of how and why you want to have conversations with processors. And if your brokers might be able to help you on that one, your manufacturers, and sometimes the processor and the manufacturer are the same. So you want to really have some kinds of conversation about this kind of issue. When we started a chicken project 2 years ago in the Alliance, we dug into all sorts of things about the poultry industry. And then I began to think, wow, I didn't really know all this when I was a school nutrition director. When I was ordering my USDA foods, I wish I would have known better, because I probably could have gotten a lower price, perhaps, with a mixed product. A dark meat might be lower in price. Is there some way I can use that dark product? And again, it's about stretching those pennies. And those of you in school nutrition know exactly what I'm talking about. We had one of our districts go out with their cutlery kit and fight companies to get rid of the straw in a cutlery kit, just because of the fraction of a penny that they got back that they could then use for food. And think of the districts, the Urban School Food Alliance, the districts are 50,000 enrolled or larger. So they buy tens of millions of these things a year. And just to fight to get that straw out so they could get a fraction of a penny back to put into food was worthwhile to them. And so when it comes to USDA foods, we want to make sure we're doing the very best and making sure that we're getting the products we want with the most flavor and the most acceptability to students. This is also something I thought was interesting, the natural proportion products. Modern techniques now allow processors to produce natural proportion white and dark that are difficult to distinguish between all white products. I think these are terms that I love going to food shows, and the sales reps that are in the booth, I like to ask these questions and just see if they know their own products, if they know what they're selling. And so next time I go to a food show, I'm going to ask about the natural proportion products. What do they have that's naturally, the proportions are white and dark, and it's difficult to distinguish between all white products? Because I'll bet they'll be showing some to encourage people to use that whole bird. Natural proportion products draw down entitlement balances in equal proportion relative to the processor's return ratio, what we just talked about up above. This can help save you money. These two terms were new to me a year ago. I've been in the business almost 40 years. I knew about yields, but I didn't think about asking about yields. I didn't think about asking about how to manage and balance those yields. And I certainly didn't understand the techniques that are now available that make these blended products in particular difficult to distinguish from all white products. And it's a wonderful, flavorful product that we have out there that we can use in school meals. So of course, many of you, and I'm assuming most of you are going to know this, that there are product calculators. And this I did use, only they are so much more advanced now than when I got into the business, when I was in the business and trying to figure all this out. When I was in Wisconsin, we actually kind of pushed the state to do direct diversion. We weren't allowed to do it at first. And there were a group of us that kind of pushed that. Well, be careful what you ask for, because as we pushed that, then we had to figure out and calculate what we were using and make sure that we were drawing down. So I would say on a bid now to require manufacturers to provide a product calculator in your bid solicitation. They all have them. They're all on websites. These are easy to use tools on most of the websites. I would think to calculate the balance for you. Now, the other thing I would tell you is that you can go to these websites. You don't have to be buying anything, but you can go to the websites. Once I got involved in this, I started going to websites and just looking at them, tried just looking at the differences in the calculators, seeing how easy they were to use. You can play around on those calculators without even buying anything, but it shows you the differences that different manufacturers have ready to use for you. But it assists in identifying how many cases are needed to meet your forecasted portions and how many cases can be ordered per item, how many commodity pounds are being used, and then how many entitlement dollars are being spent. So it really tells you what to do. And the one most recently that I was looking at where I got this red item information from, you just put in what you want and it automatically told you what the percentage was. It automatically told you what their yields were from that manufacturer. It was so easy to do. None of this works, though, if you have not forecasted correctly. If you haven't decided year to year, and I've got to put a pitch in for this because we are hearing from our manufacturers across this country. One recently sent Jill and I a copy of a bid that was dated 1985. It had a signature from a school nutrition director that has passed away about 10 years ago. You must forecast, even if you're doing USDA foods, you're looking at your calculators, you have to begin by looking at your cycle menu. I would suggest you reduce SKUs. You know, if you can find one poultry product that'll work in a variety of situations, make your own sauces, or, you know, you can do it in wraps, you can do it in salads, you can do it in a sandwich. That's what's going to be the best for you, because even with USDA foods, you want to order volume. The bigger the volume, the better off your price is going to be. And so you want to make sure that you're forecasting correctly, because if you don't have a good forecast for what you're going to be buying and you put it into that calculator, it's going to spit out numbers for you, but you're still going to be off at the end of the year. You're still going to have a problem. So you want to make sure that you're forecasting really well. Try to look at your menu. Can you reduce some SKUs and use the same item multiple ways so that you can buy more volume of that product? It makes it easier for you because you're bringing in less product into the back of the house. But these calculators are amazing, absolutely amazing, to really balance this white-dark ratio to make sure that you're using more product. When you're playing around in a calculator and all of a sudden you see, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not doing enough dark meat, go back to those lists. And what I noticed on almost every website I was on, that they all have the list of available products broken up into those 3 categories that I just showed you. Go back and look at those products. Find out what you're interested in. You can either call and ask for a sample, and a sample is a very small portion. I won't even get down that road. Very small portion to try to look at. Or if you have a food show coming up that you're going to be going to, a USDA food show that you'll be going to, if you're really interested in a product, I would let the manufacturer or a broker know, look, I'm coming to this food show and I'm really interested in this company's product. They're going to make sure they have something there for you. They're going to let you know that there's something there so that they can at least talk to you about it, or at least have a POS for you if you really show interest in that product. So using these calculators to get yourself going, thinking this through, it will let you know where you are in the balance, and then make sure you go to the websites and look for their lists. That list that I gave you just a couple slides ago, that was only a fraction of a couple of different websites. There are so many products in all of those categories, including dark and blended products, that you want to make sure that you're looking for the kind of product you're looking for to meet the needs in your district. And I would really encourage you to try something different if your calculator doesn't work out so well. But don't go and try to order without using the calculators on the websites, because that will be very, very difficult for you to understand your diversion. And then, of course, you have to pay attention to drawing down and make sure that you're drawing down on all of those products. So an important notice as we're talking about all of these things, you must award white and dark meat to the same processor. They own the whole bird. So if you go to a turkey processor and you say, this is what I want, in white meat, or this is what I want only in dark meat because I like dark turkey meat. Nope. They have to use the white meat as well. You can't give your white meat to somebody else. The bird is the bird, and he doesn't come apart. They don't split and share the bird between companies. So, and you know what? It's really hard to talk about processing these cute little fellas. That's Jean's. Jean gave me these cute little diagrams. So, but it's hard to talk about processing that cute little fella. But they own the whole bird. So please, please, please make sure that you are looking at your ratios, looking at those calculators, and then making sure that you give the white and dark meat to the same processor. That's why it's so important to look at the lists of what they have available. If you really like a couple of products from one processor, you want to use that whole bird, give that processor or their broker a call and find out what else. They'll help you balance your yields. They'll help you. They'll suggest things to you. They probably even have recipes, and most websites have great recipes that are school nutrition recipes ready to go. And most of you know that as well, where you can go in and use those recipes and use that whole bird. But don't be afraid to talk to them. Before that bid goes out, you can have all kinds of conversations with whomever you want to talk about. Talk to. The only thing it starts when the silence hits is when the bid hits the street. And then you've got to make sure that everybody knows what conversations you're having with everybody else. But up till then, you may have all the conversations you want to find out what products are available from the different processors. Engage with your broker representative and your company representative. They are there to help you. They want to make sure that you're there, that they can stretch the dollars for you. They want to make sure that you're getting exactly what they want. They can help you put menus together. They can help you, like I said, come up with recipes. The one thing you can't do is you can't grab their spec. We all know that, right? You can't take the sticker that people like to give out at food shows and put it on your solicitation. You can go to websites and you can read all of their specs. Their specs are wonderful, well written. I haven't read any on a website that aren't well done. Go get them. Take them home, then decide what is it that's important to you and rewrite your own spec. Do not put it on there so that it's so specific that you're limiting competition. You have to make sure that you have open and fair competition. And it will be very easy for the state when they look at bids, solicitations. It's pretty easy when you say you want an exact size patty with a certain thickness, plus or minus an eighth of an inch or something like that. Pretty easy to see that you've picked a company and you're only going to allow that company to bid. Make sure that you have some ranges, make sure that you have some thoughts into that process of writing that solicitation. But you can start writing your specs by going to websites and fully understanding what their spec is and why do you want it. And those are conversations you can have with your representatives and your brokers to make sure that you're fully understanding the product line that they have to offer you. And then you'll be okay to write a spec with a little bit of a range so that others might be able to bid into it. But like I said in the beginning, don't feel ashamed. You absolutely can say that a product calculator is required for you to do business with that company, because otherwise you're doing this all, trying to figure this out on your own. And the calculator is very, very important. Balance, I stole this from my turkey processor. Thank you very much. Balance about white and dark. This is a balancing act. It is so important for you to be able to do this and make sure that you have both white and dark. The other thing I would tell you to do is to look at other districts. Ask your friends, your neighbors, what are they buying? How are they balancing this? Get together and ask questions. One nice thing about school nutrition is we're not in competition with each other. We're there to help each other. Maybe your neighbor has a really good spec they want you to share with you. That's perfectly fine. You can copy and paste your neighbor's spec all you want. And so talk to one another. In Western Wisconsin, we would get together when it was time to order our USDA foods. We have a lot of very small rural districts in our area in Western Wisconsin. So we would get together about the middle of that little area that we were friends with. And we would meet in one of the high school libraries after school. And we would help everyone, whether it was a parochial school, a charter school, or a tiny little public school. We would help we'd come together for an evening, and we would help everyone do their USDA foods order. Now, what was really good about this is we would talk about things about reducing SKUs. So if there was one chicken nugget or one turkey crumble that we really liked or someone really liked, they would share that information with all the other districts in the area. The way that helped us is, first of all, we could work at more of a balance. It also increased the volume, because a lot of times the distributor in one area, particularly with small rural school districts, it's one distributor because there are a lot of little districts, they're 5 miles apart. Most of those distributors are going to try to win those bids. So we increased our volume on specific products. And guess what? The manufacturers gave us a lower price. We didn't have a co-op. We didn't buy together. We all operated our own solicitations, but we got a better price because we all bid the exact same product. One of their products would fit our spec. And so we could all buy the exact same chicken strip or the exact same turkey crumble. And then a manufacturer would say, wow, okay, even though that's a lot of little districts in Western Wisconsin, that's more of interest to me because they're all going to buy one product. I'm going to run one line. This is a product I use for schools. It's in the USDA Foods program. They can draw down. And so it worked really well. It also helped our state because they could buy full trucks, because we weren't all throwing our white and dark meat and our food in all different directions. We helped the state because they could buy fuller trucks or even a full truck, because we all came together and bought kind of the same thing. That will also help you in balancing, because some of the directors, we had one director that she was in one of our cities now. She runs one of the co-ops here in Wisconsin. She was amazing with Excel spreadsheets. She knew to the ounce what she had spent in USDA entitlement and to the penny and how many pounds she had. And she taught us all how to fill out this spreadsheet. It included white and dark meat. She's the one who kind of pushed some of us, saying, you guys don't know what you're doing. We got to get some of this other stuff purchased. And I'm buying this other blended product, and it's much cheaper than the all white meat, all breast meat. Why do you want all breast meat when you're going to throw sauce over it anyway? And so she had this amazing spreadsheet, Excel in those days. And so she taught us all how to do that, which brings me to the processor link in K-12 and any other website you can use to make sure you're drawing down correctly and making sure you're using your drawdown. When I left one of my districts, way back when, I had a neighboring district that was quite large compared to mine, almost double in size, and I got a call from the distributor saying there are 400 cases of protein products sitting in our warehouse that this district did not use. We've called them. They don't want it. They don't know how to store it. They don't know where to store it. It was summer. I try to draw down everything by February or March. That's what Jill always tells us to do as well, so that I could get bonus or could get things that were left over in the sweep. But here was summer, and I don't like to keep stuff in my freezer, but I'm offered 400 cases at 50 cents a case for delivery. All I had to do was do a trade, pay the paperwork for the trade, call the state, okay it with the state, and my district got 400 cases because another district didn't pay attention to their drawdown. So that's another really big, important piece of all of this. Not only white and dark meat, but draw down and buy what you bid. If you bid blended products, if you bid dark meat, find a way to use it. Make sure you're not leaving it behind, because that bird is not just white meat. So our goal here, use full entitlement dollars. You want to make sure every single penny is used. How can you best do that? I will tell you, I know that people have entitlement dollars and they dump, we call it the DOD dump. I'm just going to be honest about it. Now that I'm not a public employee, I can say whatever I want to say. They put things in DOD. For us in Wisconsin, Department of Defense produce was very expensive, and it was not an efficient use of entitlement dollars for me. I wanted my entitlement dollars in the center of the plate. That's where I wanted entitlement dollars, because that's where I could really benefit for the use of my entitlement dollars. And if I knew more, I look back now, and if I knew more about how to do this better in poultry, I would have, because poultry is the most popular protein item in the school nutrition system nationwide even. And so I could have done a much better job, and I could have stretched my dollars even further. I want the highest quality food for our students. We know that. Like I said, dark meat pulls in flavor. It pulls in moisture. It's juicy. It's flavorful. And there's a lot of good stuff there. Cost effectiveness of purchases. How can I use the best? How do I get the best price? And it might be if I'm using up my dark meat in a good balance, because the manufacturer, the processor, they're much happier with me because I'm balancing and I'm not sticking them with a whole bunch of other stuff. And you might have less waste as well because you're using it all. Now, that being said, there is absolutely no reason you can't have a conversation with your processor. There's some products you really like, a company you really like. Maybe it's a company that won your bid. You can have some conversations with that person along the way that, hey, maybe you do, before you send out your solicitation, your calculator's not working so well. That's where the processors and the brokers come in. Have some conversations. You know what, you guys, I'm really struggling using up my dark meat. Is there another district that really likes the dark products or the blended products that perhaps I could do a trade with? They can help facilitate that. You do have to go through the state. You've got to talk to the state. In Wisconsin, we had to sign papers that we were trading, but we were allowed to do it. It's all about communication. It's all about figuring out how to do this well. Talk. Before that solicitation goes out on the street, have those conversations. Be open about what you're looking for and what you want, and make sure that you're setting the goals that you have and that you want to meet those goals. But I would really encourage you to be a little bit more exploratory. We want to think about what's going on there and how you could do this. So now I've done all the talking, but I'd really like to know, do any of you have any best practices that you'd like to share on how you balance the bird? Or are there any myths that you would like to dispel to be a part of this conversation as well? Jean, Grant?
Hey, if anybody has any best practices that they like to share, you can go ahead and raise your hand or let me know in the chat so I can unmute you.
I won't be able to see it. So if you just let me know if anybody's there.
You bet. I'll keep my eye on it here. Looks like Jean says, please unmute me.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute myself. I don't have anything, but I am delighted that with all the ideas that you have, please share any tips that you have or that maybe some of you co-ops have about getting together. And I really like and encourage the idea of you talking to other schools. And if we can help you in transfers or however, I don't know how to do a lot of that, but I'll certainly find out, and I will certainly do whatever we can do to make it better for all of you.
Jean, does anybody out there have a best practice that they've used, a better balance of their poultry? Anybody want to share an idea? Or Jill?
I'm not seeing any takers, Katie.
Okay.
But we'd be glad to invite that discussion at this point.
Jill, did you have any ideas from what you might have done in your co-op?
One of the things that we found was that partnership and working with our other districts within the co-op. And if somebody was a really heavy dark meat user, maybe it would balance out with your white meat. But I am a total advocate of the natural proportion. It makes the whole process so much easier, and you don't have to really track the products quite as closely as you do when you split it into white and dark. So I'm just an advocate for that. And if you're really a dark meat turkey person, there is a commodity code that is dark meat turkey only. And that's where you can get that turkey taco meat and some of those crumbles that are, they start out as dark meat. So that might be another commodity code to consider.
And I think just finding those products and really looking for those kinds of products and that natural proportion. Again, I would encourage every one of you at a food show to ask the sales reps, and all the processors on the call here can make sure their team is up to par on explaining what that is and what is the technology that is used to make sure that those products are, it's much more difficult to figure out that they're white meat, that they're not all white meat. So I think too, I will say another thing, and I'm sorry I can't see the chat, but another thing that I do caution people on when they do a all white whole muscle breast meat, you have to buy a very large portion for that to make sure that you're meeting your 2 meat alternate. And some people like to do a 3 meat alternate, but that's a big piece of chicken. Or, you know, we wouldn't do it in a turkey because you'd have half the turkey. But, you know, when I've seen school districts do that, I really question, for me, I always question, what's the purpose of that? Is that really coming from the fast food industry, that we've sort of brainwashed ourselves that that's what we have to do now to entice students? We found out in our project that that wasn't the case. We didn't have to entice students with this whole muscle breast meat because you have to buy a pretty large portion size of that to make sure that you're getting your 2 meat alternate. I also I'm not familiar that there would be one that looks all the same. I know some people that have tried that and used that. They went back to something else because they said that some pieces were much larger and some were smaller, and kids were complaining that they weren't getting the same size. And, you know, even though they all met 2 meat alternate, not all chickens grow at the same rate. So they weren't always the same size piece in a whole muscle breast meat. So I think people need to kind of reconsider that and rethink that as we, again, continue to pinch pennies in school meals and do try to get some of the best product possible. I will also join in that something else we learned in our poultry project is that there are different ways to process poultry. And I would ask some questions about that. We learned something called tumbling. And that is how they could use white meat if they wanted white, or they could use a blended product in this particular case as well. And then what they did is it's all meat. There were no additives, but the way it was processed, it was tumbled, which broke down, and I think I'm saying this right, Jill, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it broke down some of the meat itself, which then the protein kind of was the connector to put it back together again. And then they could form and shape it all in the exact same form and shape. And so when you bit into this, it was like it was a whole muscle meat. It was crazy cool. Really, really good product, but nothing added, because a lot of our districts don't use any ingredients of concern, and they don't want all the ingredients. So there was nothing else added to this because of the processing method that they used. And it was called tumbling. So I would ask processors as well, if you're out in a food show or you're seeing manufacturers, ask them about their processing process. It's an interesting thing to learn, actually, because there's a lot of different processes that people use. And just try some different products that are processed differently, and you might find some differences in what you decide that you like for your district.